So thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's great to see everybody again, a lot of faces from our town hall and some new faces I'm seeing here. And if you don't know me, I'm Cynthia Mohud-Levin. I'm a founding member and president of our coalition. I am also part of the Palo Alto Mills College Club. I graduated in 1995 and both my sisters attended Mills College. We are just thrilled and delighted to have so many guest speakers with us this evening. First on the agenda will be my update for Save Mills College Coalition, as I know many of you are curious as to what's happening with our fight. And we have a Q&A with distinguished former president of Mills College, Jan Holmgren. We'll then get an overview from Dr. Matt Hendricks, our pro bono financial analyst, who has done an incredible job bringing clarity to the current administration's actions. And then we'll have a roundtable discussion with a former provost, a former dean, former associate dean, and a Mills student. We feel it is imperative to give you an update on what has transpired since our last town hall. We recently received news that the California Attorney General Office, Rob Bonta, has informed the Mills College Board of Trustees that they will not block Northeastern's takeover of Mills College. What was shocking and very disturbing to us was that the AG's office prematurely made its decision 20 days ahead of the acquisition closure date at the end of this month. And they made this premature decision without fully considering the compelling evidence the coalition was providing that shows the college's financial ruins, they're claiming it would be ruined, to be false. In their explanation, they accepted the college's claims that they were acting in the best interests of charitable donors to the college and in order to prevent the college from having to sell off more of its assets. Needless to say, we do not feel that the AG is representing those donors and assets which were given to the college to support its mission as a women's college and the many important programs that will now cease to exist. I know you're probably all trying to process this information because it is very, very shocking. But this decision by the AG's office, though it's deeply upsetting, does not change our efforts to fight what is essentially a land and asset grab. The Save Mills College Coalition is demanding that the Attorney General hold the college accountable in this manner. We want to be clear that a decision to not block the closing of Northeastern deal does not mean that this matter cannot be investigated and exposed in the future. We ask that you continue to fight with us. And let's now take a deep breath and acknowledge how hard we have fought over the past year. It's even longer than a year. And to re-energize ourselves for the fight that continues. I want to refocus our attention on why we invited you here this evening to our rally. One of the claims we've heard from the administration and others over the past year is that our perspective is just that of alumni. And we lack the inside information of those who know more about running Mills and its finances than we possibly can. Now, I personally held down 3 student jobs on campus, but it's fair to say that none of us coalition leaders have ever worked as an administrator or faculty. So we're really truly honored to have several distinguished former administrators at Mills join us this evening to help us put this entire situation into context. This is an important opportunity for all of us to hear the unique perspective from these administrators who understood how to run a successful higher education institution, our beloved Mills College. I'd like to begin our discussions with a reminder of why the difference of Mills has made in people's lives over the years. And to that end, I'd like to introduce Claudia Mercado, who graduated from Mills with a BA in 2006 and an MBA in 2007, and has been working with us over the past few months in outreach to organizations and legislatures. She is also currently the treasurer of the AAMC, and I will now turn it over to you, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you for the Save Mills Coalition and all the speakers here present and every single attendee being here. supporting us. Like many of us on this call today, I'm deeply grateful for the positive impact that Mills has had in my life. I deeply love Mills. I believe the world loves Mills, and it wants it to continue to exist for generations to come. It gives young women like myself the opportunity to dream big and make a positive impact on the world. A little bit about myself. I was born in Juchipila, Zacatecas, a small town in rural Mexico. At age 7, my parents decided to immigrate to Oakland from Mexico to make sure their kids will get a world-class education in the United States. Through endless perseverance and many helping hands along the way, I became the first college graduate in my family with the BA and MBA from Mills College, class of 2006 and 2007. As you guys may know, the road to success is never easy, and you never walk alone. In high school, and I learned this really early on, in high school, I earned a scholarship to attend the urban school of San Francisco, a private high school in the Haight. With very little family financial resources, I had to find a way to make it work. So I commuted over an hour and a half from Oakland to San Francisco with just $1.25 for lunch. I weighed 90 pounds, but still managed to play 3 sports a year, soccer being one of those sports, as you guys can tell. My love for cyclone is here. And there was times where I did not know how I was going to get home because I didn't have any money for the bus. But every single time somebody found a way to get me home, either it was a soccer mom that was in attendance in one of the games, it was the professor, it was one of the student parents that went out of the way, crossed the bridge, made sure I got home safe. And when it came to consider college, again, I did not know how I was going to make it work. I just knew that it was going to work. At that time, I was sleeping on the floor, sharing a one-bedroom with my siblings. And what really made a difference in my life was when I first set foot in Mills College campus and learned that Janet Holmgren was the president. I knew then that I would be in good hands and that a college degree was possible. I knew that I would be walking alongside strong, intentional leaders and that my future and thousands of many other young women will be bright. And this is why I fought to save Mills College for the last year. So it's an honor to introduce now our distinguished speaker who recruited me to Mills, both as a student and an athlete. And in doing that, made such a meaningful difference in my life. So thank you so much for coming into my life, Jen Holmgren. President Jen Holmgren came to Mills herself in 1991 as a result of a national search for new leadership at Mills in the years following the celebrated 1990 strike to ensure that Mills remained a women's college. She came to Mills from Princeton University, where she held the position of vice provost. She served as Mills president and Susan Mills professor for 20 years from 1991 to 2011. Since stepping down from Mills presidency, she's continued to advise and support many higher educational institutions in creating collaborations. She currently serves on the advisory board of the Center for the Study of Higher Education at UC Berkeley and the Transformational Partnership Fund. Please welcome President Emerita, Jen Holmgren. I'll turn it over to Cynthia for questions and answers for Dr. Holmgren's session. Thank you so much.
Well, and thank you, Claudia. It is so wonderful to have you here with us, and your journey, your story really is so, it just touches my heart. So thank you for reminding us how precious Mills is to us. So without further ado, Jan, thank you so much for joining us. We're just so happy to have you here. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to get to know you and all your efforts. I actually was at Mills when Jan was there, and just, I can tell you from personal experience how phenomenal Jan was. And I actually feel a little emotional about it. So I'm just so very happy to have this opportunity to have a conversation with Jan. So Jan, I think we'll kick it off with the first question. So what was your initial...
Can I just say a word before
you... Oh, I'd love for you to do that, please.
I was having a little difficulty getting myself unmuted there, so I'm glad now I'm unmuted. I want to say thank you to Claudia for that lovely introduction. And since I was one of those urban soccer moms who drove her over the bridge occasionally, and drove her home, I was so thrilled when she came to Mills, as I am with so many students. So thank you, Claudia, and thank you for your work. And I want to say thank you to the Save Mills College Coalition, all of you who have worked so hard and who are making such an effort to really care and invest in the future of Mills and the continuation of Mills, including the Alumni Association and all of the faculty, staff, and students who have been engaged in this valiant effort. So thank you. And now please go forward, because we have limited time and we want to get to the meat of the matter, right?
Great. So Jan, what was your initial reaction to the announcement? And then just a few weeks later, the acquisition?
First of all, I was really shocked and angry and disturbed by the announcement, which I had been in touch with the administration, with President Hillman during the time preceding it on occasion. It seemed to come from nowhere. And it was shocking to have it happen as an announcement in the middle of a recruitment cycle for Mills at a time when Mills needed to be strong in its recruiting efforts. And so that was enough to make me get involved immediately with those who were organizing in the Save Mills College Coalition run-up. As I was communicating with various people, but then to hear about the acquisition, and this is an acquisition by Northeastern. It is not a merger, it is an acquisition. In the midst of the discussion with the Alumni Association and the potential challenges that were being brought to the closure, was equally shocking and did not make a great deal of sense.
How are mergers like this usually handled in higher education? What level of transparency should we have expected?
First of all, mergers are not very common. They are still very, it's rare. It's rare that institutions can come to an agreement, and it's rare that they can bring all of their constituencies on board. It's also important to approach a merger, a real merger, not an acquisition, but a real merger from a position of at least confidence and strength, rather than from a position of desperation, which this seems to have at least been signaled through the closure announcement. And so, and there is often not a great deal of public discussion of a merger, but there is a great deal of internal discussion among the various constituencies, and I hope that the success will be created out of transparency and common agreement and understanding. And that takes time. I mean, the average length of even the most successful mergers in terms of the planning running up to it usually involves several years of discussion and evaluation.
Very fast, thank you. How did your impression of what was happening at Mills change over the past years?
I left the presidency, retired in 2011, so that was 11 years ago, and I was succeeded by President DeCudro, and then she subsequently by President Hillman. And I think the concerns I have over that period of time, and in the initial period, I tried to keep some distance and really understand that after having had a 20-year run and having, I thought, a very strong team of senior administrators in place to help with the transition, it would move forward. Unfortunately, I think these years have been marked with a certain level of instability. There has been, it's difficult for an institution to have two presidents in a 10-year period. It's difficult to have changes in board leadership. It's also the case that there has been instability in the leadership teams, and there has been a lot of use of outside consultants and a lack of real communication in the college about some of the issues that the college was facing and dealing with. Also, a great deal of emphasis on organization, administration, finances, not enough, in my view, talk about the educational mission and the importance of education and of student accomplishment in the context of the work of the college. So those were some of my concerns.
What do you see as the biggest missteps of the Hillman's administration?
Well, I don't want to finger point at a single president, but
Okay.
what I do want to say is, since I was advisory, President Hillman asked a number of us to serve as an advisor to her in her first year. And as an advisor to her, I certainly saw that there was a concern, a major concern presented to her by the board about the financial status of the college. And the college was at that point losing enrollment, and they were trying to figure out how to strengthen the financial position of the college. And I believe the president and the board developed the financial stabilization plan. And the financial stabilization plan, I think, created the chaos that ensued over the next several years. The two components, to my mind, that were the most damaging in that plan and had the least to do with maintaining educational excellence and the stability of the college involved breaking the contract with the faculty by declaring a financial emergency and firing outright tenured faculty, which created a crisis for Mills in the whole realm of higher education. And then the second issue was making a decision to reduce tuition by half for undergraduate students, with the notion that that would in fact raise the number of students enrolled. And there was not a financial backup plan to that to address the issue of what would happen were that not to be the case, and you would lose those revenues from the students who were enrolling. And in addition, there was no attention being paid to the graduate programs and the graduate students who come to the college for their faculty and for their programs and for the reputation of the institution. So those were the concerns I had over the last several years.
Could you please share with us just a little bit more of why you were speaking out? You touched upon it earlier, but we'd love to hear more about this.
You know, I think most presidents emerita are hesitant to make public opinions and issues that undermine or contradict a sitting administration and or the board. And so I have tried really hard to work with those who are raising the issues and who are creating explanations for why Mills could stay solid and continue and have a future in a way that would help to influence the course of what was developing. But I have, of late, it's become clear to me that this is a crisis, that I love Mills. I care deeply about Mills. I'm a member of the class of 2011, the graduating class. I believe Mills matters to the world, and I believe Mills matters to education across the board. And I could not see this acquisition go through without speaking out about why it is it's wrong and it should not happen in this way.
So the next question we have is, what pressing concerns do you have about this acquisition?
What concerns don't I have? I mean, first of all, this is a Research One institution that does not have a reputation for any commitment to educating women or advancing women, and that is based in Boston, Massachusetts, does not have experience. They have satellites, but they don't have experience in California. They are not a liberal arts institution. They do not have any arts divisions. they do not allow, their accreditation in Massachusetts does not include certification for teachers in California. So, I mean, there's an endless list of reasons why this is a bad fit. And it is also the case that this is an ambitious institution, and in higher education, we're glad to see ambition. We're glad to see institutions doing outreach, but in fact, they are, Mills is an invaluable asset that they are getting for a very small amount of money, and with very little commitment that can be legally enforced in terms of how long they will maintain Mills as an educational institution, accredited and degree awarding. So the idea that somehow Northeastern is carrying on the mission of Mills is misguided. It is wrong, and it has been of concern to me that the Mills leadership, as it is now, and Northeastern seem to have exactly the same script for this so-called merger. There doesn't seem to be any pushback from Mills about holding on to anything that matters at Mills that is critically important to Mills' identity. So those are some of my concerns.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, because we were told in the beginning that the heart and soul of Mills, the essence of Mills, will be preserved, and we're actually seeing the complete opposite of that. So next question. In the 90s strike, the Board of Trustees also just seemed to believe in must-go co-ed story. Can you speak to the relationship of the board to the president and what might have gone wrong at Mills?
Okay. Well, first of all, I learned about Mills for the first time in 1990 by watching the televised strike when I was living in New Jersey and seeing these brave women, and some of you were there, I know, many of you were there, speaking out and making the point that women mattered. And for me, that was extraordinarily inspiring. I had no notion that I would subsequently be a candidate to be president of this institution. That was a year-long search. And I would not have come to Mills. I wasn't, that was not on my bucket list. I would not have come to Mills had it not been committed to remaining a women's college, because remaining a women's college and building on the strength of that commitment that the board made to the college and to the alumni and the students and the faculty, and that needed to be stewarded and piloted and made successful. That was a real agenda, and it was real work that needed to be done and to make a difference in the world. And basically, there was a lot of mistrust, but there was also a commonality of purpose. We had shared goals. We knew where we were going. We were going to achieve a level of enrollment, at least 1,000 undergraduate students. We were going to raise $10 million, and we were going to maintain Mills as a women's college. And that was reaffirmed in 2000, again by the board. We far exceeded our goals, and we built out both our undergraduate and our graduate programs. But it took time, and it took the development of a lot of strong connections between the board and the faculty and the alumni and the students and the staff and administration. And it required a great deal of focused goal setting and accountability.
Yeah. So the loss of Mills means the loss of an important women's college at a time when women's rights are under attack in this country. What does the loss of Mills mean for women's education and leadership?
That almost brings me to tears, actually, because I am so discouraged by the amount of struggle that we are seeing, and the loss of ground for women in this country, and worldwide in some ways. But I can say that Mills has been a beacon for women's empowerment the fact that women matter and the education of women matter, that was affirmed in 1990. I cannot tell you how many places all over the world I've traveled representing Mills, and I see some of you from those various places on this call who know that Mills stood up for the importance of women being educated and women coming together and building strength and community. Just as an example, we took the largest constituency of students and faculty and staff to the 1995 Fourth World Conference on Women. And that was all done with the support of trustees and volunteers. And we had many, many conferences at Mills where we brought outstanding women together to talk and discuss the empowerment and education of women, to inspire our students, and so many of our alumni and students, current students, just are leaders in the community and in the world. And so especially, it seems to me, in the richest state in the nation and the largest state in the nation, to lose the premier women's college, the oldest in the West, one of the oldest in the nation, one of the only, well, one of the only ones in the West. There are only two others, and one is part of a consortium. It's a shame, and it's really disgraceful. This is not a time to be pulling back on the education and the empowerment of women. And it doesn't mean that Mills has to carry this alone, but it does mean that the support should be to keep Mills going and not to have it disappear into Northeastern.
Thank you, Jan. I think that was perfectly said. So moving on, what can we keep alive at Mills of how special and precious it is? What suggestions do you have for alums going forward who care deeply about what's happened here? And then I have one final question for you after that.
I want to be sure how our time is going, but okay. I thought about this idea of what we can keep alive, and I think everything. I think we have to keep all these balls in the air, because I don't think there is one that can drop. We cannot say we just have to focus in now on our history and being historically important, or we just have to have an institute that somehow people come and do a little bit of scholarship and figure out what's going on. No, Mills needs to be an educational institution. It needs to be accredited. It needs to be degree awarding. It needs to be innovative. It needs to be supported in that way. And yes, that's going to be a heavy lift. I don't know how that can happen exactly, but I don't want to give up on any of those priorities, because I do believe Mills needs to be maintained in a vital and alive way, and not become an historical relic, as I'm afraid something like the Institute would create, and we would see Mills disappear.
So finally, last question, and I know we're out of time, but what do you think our coalition needs to do next?
Oh, everything. I mean, you've been doing everything all along. So, I mean, adding to the everything list is, I think it's important to keep the pressure on and keep the issue alive. And I am very grateful to all of us and everyone who is donating, and to Karen and Cynthia and Michael, to the three of you, and your coordination and leadership in bringing on support teams and staff, and wisely stewarding the nonprofit status of the coalition, and continuing to raise money, because there is going to be just an important role here in monitoring what happens. We should not be letting the people who are staying at Mills, President Hillman and others off the hook for what we think Mills should be getting from this arrangement. We should be not letting Northeastern off the hook in terms of what they are saying they're going to do. We do not let the AG off the hook in terms of monitoring what this means for California and for higher education in the state. So I think, I know that's a tall order, but I don't think anyone should give up the continuing engagement and involvement in keeping the issues alive.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for really summing that up beautifully. Thank you for your time with us. Thank you for your incredible support and your advice and your insight. And it's just invaluable. So we can't thank you enough, Jan. We're just so thrilled to have you. You are a gem to us. So we will continue the fight, and we all believe in Mills, and we still believe there is truth and justice to be had on behavior that we don't agree with, decisions we don't agree with, and we as a coalition are committed to continue that. And so we now have to move on. And thank you again, Jen. I can't thank you enough. I'm so thrilled to have you here. We're going to move on to Matt, who you've heard from before, and we think that there are still some critical issues that are floating out there in the universe. You've maybe seen it on Facebook and information that we've put out to you, concerns and naysayers that continue to say that the school is just doing terribly financially, and that couldn't be further from the truth. But I think you should hear from the expert here, Matt Hendricks. And so he really doesn't need an introduction to many of you. He's been of great help to us in researching and getting a very clear picture of what was really going on at Mills, and separating truth from the dramatic and the largely false narrative of this administration that continues to be said, unfortunately. And so we will continue to counter that. Matthew Hendricks is the chair of the economics department at the University of Tulsa. His research includes trends in labor economics and education policy. He's been published in the Journal of Public Economics and Economics of Education Review. After helping his own university navigate a financial crisis, he began to see similar disturbing financial trends in colleges across the nation. He has made it his mission to analyze and increase awareness about these spending patterns in higher education. We're so very grateful for his tremendous help over the past year. So Matt.
Yeah, thank you. First thing I want to say is thanks to President Holmgren. I spent a lot of time looking at numbers, and I can tell from the numbers that Mills is in great shape. And when Jan left, and it's pretty shocking, I'm sure, to everybody, and I'm sure mostly to Jan, that just in 11 years that the school that she was leading is probably most likely going to be gone in the next few weeks. So I just wanted to say, I think, not all administrators are bad, but Jan isn't a good example. We need more administrators like Jan out there. And if we still had her running Mills, I'm sure Mills would have never had these issues, to be quite frank about it. This is a kind of dramatic fall that it was compounded. When I explain what's happened at Mills now to people that have never heard the story, I usually start out by saying it's kind of like a plane crash. You've got about 4 or 5 things simultaneously going wrong. And on top of that, the wrong decisions, the wrong moves are being made. So it's a sort of culmination of a whole bunch of bad things happening at once that brings the university down. So I was trying to think about what to talk about today. You guys have all heard a lot of what I've said before, but you might not know that we were spending tons of time the last few weeks to write a report for the Attorney General that was going to be delivered the day after they decided they weren't going to investigate. So they didn't even have a chance to look at the report that I worked on, and with the help of several staff at Save Mills College Coalition. So I thought with this presentation that I could run through some of the key points one more time. I was going to present it in a little bit more rigorous way in that report, and so I can run through a bit of that if we have time. But I know we're going to run out of time, so why don't I just do this? The top 5 things that I was going to present, or I do present in that report, and you can see it if you'd like. I've said before, Mills, yeah, it's lost some revenue, but it's not a catastrophic loss. Mills revenue is still, they lost about 10 million in revenue. That's not even high for schools that are in a crisis. Several schools in California have experienced much larger drops in revenue over the last few years, including some of Mills's peers. I'll give you a couple examples: Pacific Union College, Whittier College, just to name a couple. Mills's revenue is 56 million in 2021. That is off the charts high, and I can show you a picture of that. They're 8th in the country for similar schools like Mills. Here's its peer group, and I'll just show you this. That's expenses. Let me go to revenue really quick. So this is the dashboard that I was working on all these days, and I was going to present. This is one of the graphs I was going to present to the AG. And let me just zoom into
Matt,
yeah.
I think you need to screen share a different window there.
Oh, okay.
On your desktop.
All right, let me try that again. Sorry. If I do maybe this one, can you see it now?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So this is revenue, and on the horizontal axis is number of students. So I just want to give you guys a visual of what I've been talking about all these days. The red dots, these are Mills. This is Mills in let's see, I want to go to 2015. Mills in 2015, and then it kind of goes like, let me grab this, it goes like this. All right. So there's a few takeaways from this graph. Mills's 2021 revenue is right here. For the number of students that Mills has in 2021, about 836 students. It's very, very high. There's only a few schools that have higher revenue than Mills that are among the peer group. And most schools have far, far less. A typical school that has 836 students has a revenue of about 30 million. Mills has 56. So it's not even in the same realm, really. I mean, you can look at all of these other example schools here and many, many more that are operating with far, far less revenue per student or even total than Mills. Mills's revenue is a lot higher than many very, very large schools like Eastern Mennonite, for example. St. Mary's College has 1,600 students, and Mills's revenue is still higher than theirs. So it's really, to me, it's not really a revenue problem. It's really an expenditure problem, which is nice because that's something you can fix quite easily. I'm going to show you the graph here on the expense side to make this clear. So this was another thing I was going to show the AG. Back, this is well past Jan's time, but during Jan's time, things were fine. We've got expenses here for the size of the school that are very close to the line. That's where you want to be. On average, your expenses are sort of in line with where your peer institutions are. But take a look at what happens to Mills's expenditures. As they lose students, moving to the left on this graph, going from about 1,500 students to 800, losing almost half here, you have an increase in, a sort of flat, if not increasing trend in expenses. That's not normal. When schools contract, they should be moving along this line like this, all right? What Mills did was move the opposite direction. So they create this big gap here between what they're spending and what they should be spending. And this gap is huge. They're at 64 million spending in 2021, and they should be around 32 million in spending. It's like double what they should be, double what the average school spends of their size. So that was one of the things I was going to point out. So they got a massive spending situation. And so the question I always get is, where's the extra spending? I can drill it down pretty easily for you. There are really 2 spots, and I don't want to run out of time. So there are 2 spots, and it's split almost 50-50. One of them is a staffing problem, and the other is a overuse of contractors. All right, and you can see it clearly in this. This is administrative spending. So both the contractor spending and the extra non-instructional staff are going to be in these spending groups. This is administrative spending, including academic support, institutional support. And you can see again, moving against the grain, this is what Mills has done. They've dramatically increased their instructional spending. Up to 2021, it's at 24 million almost. It used to be fine, like I said. Back in Jan's day, I'm sure it's very good. I mean, very close to the line here. That's perfect, but it's since gone way out of whack. I mean, moving up like this. So you've got a gap here that's 13 million. That's more than enough if Mills just fixed this gap. Again, right sizing its staff, right sizing its contractor usage, it could more than cover its structural deficit, which is about 8 million. This gap right here is 13.5 million. You see, Mills is all by itself. I mean, it's not normal. And this movement, I finished presenting this yesterday to NACUBA, which is the sort of governing association of business officers for the country, University of Business Officers. And the guys I was presenting to, they're just like, wow, what is going on there? I mean, clearly it should be going like this, right? And this is a pretty shocking graph. I have no idea what they're thinking here. Hiring, and by the way, they're doing this while they're firing faculty, right? So increasing spending, increasing staffing, increasing contractor usage while this is going on, and they're firing faculty. It's maddening. So I'm probably going to run over on time, but that was what I was going to show the AG. Mills doesn't have to close. It can easily close its structural deficit just by right sizing its expenses. A few other things I don't have time to show you, but it does have a huge borrowing capacity, unlike what you've been told. Mills probably could, today borrow at least 40 million on the bond market and still be sort of average for revenue, debt relative to revenue. So it has a massive amount of borrowing capacity at the moment. And as I understood it, they've been saying that they don't, which is surely not true. I'd love to see that rejection letter on that. And then the other thing is the revenue situation could be fixed as well. I'm convinced, and I can show you in a simulation I just finished today, actually, that what happened was the school put an overemphasis on getting yield up. All right. Obviously you want to have a higher yield, but the problem is the way they pursued getting their yield up actually resulted in fewer applications of students, which trumps yield, really. Very, very important to have a lot of applications. Really doesn't matter so much what your yield is, and I can show you that if we have time, but that exchange was a very bad trade, and all Mills has to do to get its enrollment back is to make that trade-off again, get your applications back up at the expense of a little bit of yield. All right, that's it for that was what I was going to present to the AG, but didn't have a chance. Yeah, this is basic stuff. I mean, they're hiring consultants. It's kind of shocking that they didn't know this stuff. I'm not sure who these consultants are, because actually the consultants would have told them exactly what I just said. So I don't know who they're hiring. All right. So I'll stop sharing my screen and go to questions.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. That's very illuminating, and it nicely addresses questions that just don't seem to go away. And so I'm hoping we can put some of these falsehoods to bed. So thank you so much for looking at public documents, audits that anybody can look at, and these numbers are the truth. And so thank you for getting to the truth. So here's a question for you. Some people claim it'd take too long to turn around Mills. We hear this a lot. What would it actually have taken to turn around Mills? Can you give examples of that from other colleges?
Okay, so long story short, it wouldn't take long. So you can fix the overstaffing issue in one fiscal year, less than a fiscal year. My school did it. We had 400 extra staff at my school, almost 350 or so. And they straightened that out very quickly. We didn't just throw everybody on the street. What they did is buy people out. They gave them incentives and paid, separation. So you take this short-term hit, but eventually, so we have a balanced budget now. It took 1 year. So we went from a structural deficit at my school of about 14 million to a balanced budget in 1 year. So Mills can do the same thing. It's really the similar issue. hopefully these contracts with the contractors are not overly long, so you can get out of them. I know the noodle contract is really difficult to get out of, and they put that in there for a reason. All right. So, but a lot of this can be fixed quite quickly. Even the enrollment issue, if you want to address that, which is not required, that would take 4 years, probably 4 years or 5 years to fix.
So we're kind of out of time here, but I think you answered the next question, which is, did Mills really need to sell any assets at all? Because the AG's office is worried that more assets would have to be sold off. And I think it's a resounding no, full stop on that, based on what you have shared with us.
Yeah, they just kicked the can down the road. I mean,
yeah,
they still had a structural deficit. They didn't cut any costs, so they just increased their costs, right? They just made the problem worse.
exactly. So finally, and very quick, because we have to move on to our roundtable, I'm trying to keep us on track here. What kind of message does this tragic and unnecessary shuttering of a college send across higher education? And what can we do about what's happened here at Mills?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I got involved with Mills is that it was sending a very bad message to other schools that do operate with half the revenue. Most schools have half the revenue Mills does, right? And so they see that and they're like, wow, we have no chance of surviving, right? If Mills can't survive. So it sort of compelled me to look into Mills because this is a problem, right? I'm trying to help schools that are operating on very tight margins with half the revenue. And if I just let Mills die and people have no idea what happens, that's going to be a big problem for other schools in the future when they'll just point to Mills and say, we can't do it. Nobody can do it, right? But I think I'm doing a good job pushing back against that, and I'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that, Matt. I mean, your work is really incredible, and I know it's a lot of long hours and unpaid hours, but your passion really shines through. And
Thank you.
We do hope that this will help us bring more truth, as I said earlier, to light. So thank you again, invaluable information. So moving right along, we're now going to talk to our panelists that have joined us today. And our student, actually, I'm going to leave for last, but let me introduce you to our distinguished panelists now. So we have Dr. Sandra Greer, Provost of Mills from 2008 to 2013 and Professor of Chemistry. Dr. Diane Ketelle, former Dean of the Mills School of Education and Mills alumna of 1978. Kennedy Golden, former Associate Dean of Students, who I remember very well. And finally, Shay Franco-Clausen, Mills MPP graduate class of 2022 and community political strategist. So let's get started with questions. And any of the panelists, before your first question, if you just wanted to say a couple things, that's fine also. I'm going to start with Dr. Greer. What are the unique strengths of Mills in educating women, particularly in the sciences?
Well, thank you. Yes, well, remember that Mills has been both a women's college and a liberal arts college. And to my mind, the strength of Mills has been its accomplished faculty of international stature and a full commitment to the Mills mission. When Jan Holmgren recruited me to Mills in 2008, I was at the University of Maryland at the time, and I told one of my chemistry colleagues I was coming to Mills, and he said, "Oh, that's where Elizabeth Wade is." There were at that time many such distinguished faculty members at Mills. I think, for example, of Fred Frith, of Hung Liu, of Melissa Finley, of Juliana Spar, across the curriculum, distinguished and committed members of the Mills faculty who shared their passions with their students in the liberal arts tradition of furnishing their minds and teaching them to think creatively and analytically, treating them with respect and care that empowered them as they moved forward in their own lives. That faculty will not be maintained in this new institution. This will not be Mills. It is not an institution that will attract people of that caliber. And the people who an institution whose mission is totally different from that of Mills College that we know.
Thank you for that, Dr. Greer. And you know, part of what you did for Mills was a post-baccalaureate program for pre-med, and I was part of that program, and it had a 99% acceptance rate into medical school. I mean, just one of the top programs in the country, and it brought people from all over the world who paid actually full tuition just to be there at Mills, to be taught by yourself and other distinguished faculty. So thank you. So let's move on to our next panelist, Dr. Ketelle. Can you tell us about the Mills School of Education and its unique impact in producing teachers in California?
Well, I'd just like to say I'm very honored to be here tonight, and I want to thank you for inviting me. As you mentioned, I was a Mills undergrad. I was later a graduate student at the School of Education before I joined the faculty, when my professor, mentor, and friend, Jane Boyer, who was dean for many years, brought me on. And I'm very excited to talk about the School of Education, because many of you may not know how remarkable the School of Education was prior to the dismantling that has taken place. Mills College is a very small school, and the School of Education was yet even smaller. In my time at Mills, our largest enrollment was about 225 in the graduate programs, and some of those weren't even full-time students. But we were always ranked nationally in the top 100 schools of education against universities that were 3, 4, 5 times bigger than Mills College. And a lot of the big why of that had to do in part with some of what Dr. Greer was talking about. The programs in the School of Education were remarkable because we had a remarkable faculty and we attracted remarkable students. So it was a joining. We prepared teachers, we prepared leaders to be principals in schools, we prepared early childhood educators who went out and made remarkable impacts. And we had a program perhaps seldom heard of, but it was called the Child Life Program, that put practitioners into hospitals to work with families. I always, as a faculty member and then as dean, I always thought of the image of a greenhouse as my guiding light for the School of Ed. And what I mean by that is it was a place where we grew ideas. We had a faculty that would come together in dynamic ways. And when there were issues, say an issue with enrollment or other kinds of things that come up, we would creatively and imaginatively come together and grow ideas we could take forward and propose to adaptively move forward and lead as the college changed and morphed. A part of why we could do that is the School of Ed always had very strong, I want to use that word imagination because I think it's important, imaginative leaders. Jane Boyer, who was followed by Joe Kahn, who I had the opportunity to be an associate dean under him. It was a great opportunity. Followed by Kathy Schultz and then myself. So we didn't have lots of turnover in that position, but we had very committed leaders who brought the faculty together around shared values. For example, one shared value was a stance about inquiry. We believed asking questions mattered, and we cultivated that in very active ways in our students, rather than packaging solutions, which many schools of ed do. We wanted to produce thinkers, individuals who would go out and really impact the field. Another shared value that we had was that practice matters. Education is an applied social science, and the application of it is teaching or being a principal or having some kind of role where you're going to impact the lives of young students, children and youth or adolescents, and really the valuing of that practice was at the core of our work. Beyond that, I would say we had a shared value of hope. In the School of Education, no matter what was going on, even in the broader context of the college, we could always come together as a faculty and I'm going to use that word again, creatively consider how we would move forward, how we would, if the problem was increasing enrollment. We were quite creative altogether, and I am so grateful for my time at Mills and the colleagues I had and the models for leadership I experienced, which I think was a very unique experience and very, very powerfully impacted my life in positive ways. The final thing I would emphasize, and I mentioned it earlier, was that we were doing all these interesting, I think, remarkable pieces of work together, which attracted very remarkable students. And I know there are lots of you at this meeting today who went to Mills, who are remarkable in all the things you've accomplished. But our students, the students we graduated, went on to be teachers who were retained, who remained teachers, or if they wanted to move forward, they came back to Mills and they became principals of schools. And those principals were retained in leadership. It wasn't 1 year and done. If you graduated from Mills, you learned about teaching as a profession. You learned about being a principal as a profession. You learned about advancing the field in early childhood education or in child life. We taught professionalism along with the practice of manifesting education out in the broader social world. So, you know, I am sad that the School of Ed has been dismantled. And what I think about a lot is how the idea that the School of Ed is no longer there bars so many remarkable students from having the opportunity to grapple with these ideas of practice, to interact in dynamic seminars, and then to go out and have the support of the institution in maintaining their practice as they moved into the field. So I think we offered an extraordinary experience. I know I did my teacher preparation at Mills, and it was an extraordinary experience. I went on to be a first grade teacher before I was ever a professor. And I'm sorry that that isn't there, because it is a void. Mills filled a very special space in the field of education.
Thank you so much for that. You touched upon so many points that I think are so important. You talked about the why do we need to save Mills, the huge loss of these teacher leaders to the state of California and elsewhere too, across the United States, wherever they went. But this is just really, it's gut wrenching. So I'm going to move on to Kennedy Golden, who took such great care of us students and supported us in any way possible, and was nurturing and caring and lifted us up when we needed her. So my first question, I know Kennedy wants to say a couple words, but why don't you do that, Kennedy, and then I'll ask you a question.
Hey, thank you, Cynthia. First of all, I want to say how amazing it is to see so many familiar faces. Having been an active member of the Mills community for almost 27% of its history, 170 years, that's 60% of my life, working under 5 college presidents and 7 deans of students, I had the honor of knowing endless faculty, staff, and students, and have come to cherish the memories and watching the values that Cyrus and Susan put forward for everybody at Mills. But it never crossed my mind that in my lifetime, I would watch those who had accepted the responsibility of safeguarding the continuation and success of Mills College sell out the college, and treat Mills community members so poorly. I believe when the decision was made to not to recruit further Mills undergraduate students, the president and the administration effectively sealed the fate of the college, as an educational institution cannot survive without students. Despite the amazing amount of work of many community members put into saving Mills College, I still hold out hope for a last-minute shift, and I believe it's imperative that all of us who care deeply do whatever we can in these last days. I think that at this last minute, the work is needed to continue the appeals to those who have some authority to alter the trajectory Mills seems to be on. And our energy is needed to continue to change what feels like an almost inevitable path. The days are passing quickly, but we must not give up. I think President Holmgren said that very clearly. Should Northeastern take over our beloved Mills College, I hope that each of us will hold on to and remember whatever good memories we have of our time with the college, and that we'll work to remain connected in our personal lives, personal and professional. Together and connected, we can honor what we've known as Mills College and continue to change the world for better. I think this is a scary moment for all of us, a depressing moment for all of us, but I think there is hope, and we have to continue to try and support and strengthen women's education for all the populations that have come to Mills and gotten so much out of being on that beautiful campus, with tremendous support from faculty and staff and other students. It's not over.
Thank you for that, Kennedy. So well said. Really appreciate those words. My first question for you, and you've touched a little bit upon this, but what was so amazing about Mills for so many years?
I think the commitment that everyone had who came to the campus, maybe not even knowing what they were coming to, but then finding some gem in the faculty, in the classroom, in the theater, in the music building. You know, everybody found their niche. The students that I worked with who were child life majors, who went out to work in hospitals and with parents of children in just dreadful situations. Watching all of the community members, whether it was administrators, I worked with some amazing administrators. I worked with some fabulous faculty members. There was such a commitment to the college values. And I'm really, really concerned that that is not going to continue with Northeastern. I think Sandra Greer said that really well. The liberal arts education that's been so critical for our undergraduate students, and the very specialized training that our graduate students have received, whether it be in dance, music, art, book arts, and all of the other majors on campus, will be lost and will leave a tremendous hole in the future of society.
Thank you. I totally agree with that. So thank you to our panelists that have spoken so far. Just really, really important points and so well articulated. So we're just honored to have you here also. So thank you. And the time you served at Mills, I mean, you are, I have to say, you're rock stars, and you all made, just like with Jan, you all made Mills just a precious, magical place for women, and beyond that to really thrive, and to ask questions, and to push back, and to be truth seekers like you see all of us here, and to be successful because of the way the programs were structured and the exceptional faculty and staff that are there to bring forth all the values that we hold so dear at Mills. So with that, I'm going to move on to Shay, because we feel that it is really important for everybody here to hear from a student. You all probably know that there is a class action lawsuit that was brought forth by two named students that will go to court here very soon. And we are really so very happy to have Shay with us. She, as I said, she studied public policy. She's an activist. And Shay, want to make sure she's here. She's juggling her work. She's so.
Oh, I'm here. I came in at 5.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Even in your car. We love that you're here. Thank you, Shay. So I'm Shay, if it's okay, I'm just going to jump into the questions because we have about 15 minutes left. So why did you come to Mills? Why did you choose Mills?
So ironically, is someone from my background that was this formerly incarcerated girl who grew up in Oakland, trying to find ways to help my community. I was able to get great mentors like Dwayne Easton, Barbara Lee, you know, and other amazing women who had this attachment to this school. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would go to college, to be honest. Just to survive and make it to 25 was a goal. And so throughout my advocacy, I met those amazing women who said, oh, you're a Mills graduate. Oh, I could see you, Black, Afro-Latino, queer, you know, doing the most in the community. You need to finish your education, and Mills is the only place. I didn't apply to any other school because these women said, this is where I belong as a Black, Afro-Latina, queer woman. This is your safe space. And it being a women's college even made it even more exciting to want to go. So I only applied to one college, and it was Mills.
Incredible story. And we're so glad that you went to Mills. You were definitely a Mills woman through and through. So you were in the 4+1 program. Can you tell us what happened to your program and what impact that had on you and what other students over the past year have had to deal with?
So when I applied in 2018 for the 4+1, there was no indication about anything else that was happening. And I was going to do my 2-year graduate like I just did, and then do my master's. Just like everyone else, faculty, staff, and other students, we learned about the merger all at the same time, but we were also told so many lies. There was so much deception about they were going to honor everyone who was already a Mills student. They were going to honor our educational pathway because, you know, legally they're obligated to not breach our contract. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't really worried till it became Northeastern and the distrust that was being created between faculty, staff, and students, because we were being told, we were being gaslighted, we were being told so many different stories. Oh, you're protected. Then when faculty got scared, that even added another layer of fear for students, especially someone like me who made $1 million investment by moving over to the East Bay so I can finish my last 2 years. And then I was going to get my PhD at Mills. Like, I had a whole plan. I did not know this merger was going to then stop and they weren't going to honor us. Even if so, I wasn't prepared for what I was met with.
Wow. And I can't even imagine, you know, on top of the rigor of all your studies and what you're dealing with in your personal life. And then on top of that, all of this, you know, information that's wrong, and you're getting constant misinformation. I can't even imagine how difficult that was for you. So I'm so sorry that you have had to go through that. Next question. What do you feel about the Attorney General's refusal to pause the merger?
You know, I think, and I've been thinking about this like all day today, is, you know, how come this wasn't a red flag to all these leaders that stand on these platforms and talk about equity, protecting protected class women, Roe v. Wade? They all have this narrative. I would think that the Attorney General and all the women legislators in the East Bay, at least the East Bay, would come together and say, you know, what the hell is happening? Because the narrative that Mills, and I have to put this on the president and the trustees, the narrative that they're putting out as a gaslight as we get these email notifications is, you know, we're going to preserve women of color. And I heard the previous panelists say this, but I've said this over and over again, but we are the collateral damage. Black women, queer women, white women, women as a whole who already are trying to seek equity. We're completely opposite of the story they're telling to the news and to the media. And people are not asking those questions. So I think two things. Yes, The AG has a responsibility, and so does the Secretary of State, to investigate. I don't even know why there's a question. There's over 900 breaches of contracts. So, you know, I mean, I don't know the law intensely, but I do know that when you breach a contract, they would have held me accountable to my contract with them. I think that we have to hold them in, and the Attorney General's office is the place where it should be done, in the Department of Justice, because this is about justice for us students.
Well, and I think that's such an important point. I mean, all of those are important points, but I think the breach of contract is just really shocking. And on top of that, not just the 900 students, but it's everybody who gave money to the endowment, right, or gave money to a building with the intent of it being what, you know, a women's college. That's a breach too, all of that. So,
well, and
so
I mean, the federal dollars, but even earlier to what was Matt, right? When he was saying about the money, they were still collecting federal dollars and other money, not just from donors who are invested in the outcomes of women leaders, but they were taking money, which is another big hello. Why isn't there a federal investigation?
Yes, excellent point. They're still taking federal money also under, yes, exactly. So these are all things that really need to be investigated, and it's imperative. So last question for you, Shay.
Yeah.
Mills has been a safe haven for women of color, LGBTQ students to pursue their educational goals, which you talked a little bit about. All of these are supposedly core democratic values. With your experience in politics and as an activist, what can we do to get justice for what's happened at Mills? And I think you were starting to already talk about this, but if you could go a bit more into this.
Well, I mean, you know what? I don't believe in no being an answer when there's injustice. I believe that you should, you know, the many leaders that are here before that were a part of the other strikes, I believe they left us some strong shoulders to stand on. And I've been pushing for huge rallies and huge, like, let's sleep there. Let me pull up my tents. Like, I think we owe it to those who laid the pathway for us to be able to have this safe space for women to fight, stand up. We need to send tweets out. Siri is always jumping in. I'm so sorry. But we really do need to stay active and stay on them. All the people that have just recently got elected 2 weeks ago, guess what? They need to keep their seats. And we need to use their own language of equity and progress and supporting women against them and saying, you need to stand up to make sure that this doesn't happen to a pillared of Oakland. And to that point, you also have to talk about the president needs to step down, and the trustees who allowed this deceptive process to go through, we need to ask for their call for resignation. So in addition to giving them pressure, we need to show up on their campuses. We need to be loud. And we need to make sure that we are tagging them and letting them know that we are watching and we are not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, thank you, Shay. Your expertise is so helpful to all of us, and we appreciate you sharing with us because we know you've been in the trenches and you know how this all works. So thank you.
Of course.
So let's talk a little bit more about what Shay has said. And I think at this point in the evening, we need to consider our call to action. So as Shay said, we'd really like you all immediately, if you can, after this meeting, please take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to post on Facebook. Now. Or Twitter. Yeah, right now is fine too. That works.
You know what? Copy and paste Karen inside the chat. Everybody has Twitter, or they have Instagram, or they have Facebook. There is in the chat. Karen is going to copy some text that you can just copy and paste right out of the chat, and you can tweet it right now. It is literally copy and paste and send. Copy, paste, and send. And I believe that, I mean, I appreciate all the tweets. It gets right directly to the point. We need the investigation. We need the state to step up and do what they're supposed to do to protect women in Oakland, and who come from everywhere to be a part of this beautiful mosaic that makes up some of the most powerhouses. So if you can open the chat now, copy and paste, and send a tweet, that's just one action. And trust me, we're meeting every day to talk about the next steps of what we need to do to secure at least getting him to pay attention.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. And if you can tag at Rob Bonta or and pound save Mills, please do that. You can also follow us on Twitter. So Kieran will put that in the chat for us. And we will be doing more collective actions in the future. As Shay said, we are meeting every single day to make sure that we are talking to the right people, the right politicians, the right leaders, to make sure that this is investigated, and we're not going to give up. So once again, thank you to all the speakers. We just couldn't have done it without you. This fight continues. We continue to seek more information. We continue to talk to experts like yourselves to better understand what is happening here, and we continue to do that on a daily basis. So thank you for your time, your willingness to be here, to fight with us, to support us, and to continue to bring the truth to light, and to share with us the unique experience you had working inside of a Mills, and the successful leaders that you were and that you continue to be. So we're just so honored to know you and appreciate everything you've done and everything you've given. So I'm going to let our Vice President, in the last 5 minutes, our Vice President of the Coalition, Kieran, is going to speak to you now, and he will conclude this evening. So thank you everybody for being with us here, and please stay to listen to Kieran, because I think he has some really important, an important message, and then we'll really conclude for the evening.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. So many of you know that I've been around the coalition since almost the beginning. What you might not know is that I participated in the strike back in 1990, and there was never a doubt in my mind about defending Mills again. It is such a unique and important place. I know it's important for the future, and it's needed for the future. I believe that the world needs Mills and needs to become more like Mills, not the other way around. Mills doesn't need to adapt and become more of what we have right now, which we can see is not really working all that well. So there is a time to fight and stand on principle, even when there's no guarantee of success, and to go full out when the outcome could either be horrible or it can be hopeful. And this is one of those times. Mills' impact on women's lives and the future is too important to not take a stand and do everything we can. Mills shaped my vision of the world that I want to live in, one that was creative, idealistic, diverse, tolerant, where women are celebrated and brought to the forefront, not asked to fit in. Where the arts and sciences are treated with equal respect and seen as equal pursuits, in an environment that supports them, that's surrounded with nature and that is nurturing. The world needs that, more of that, and needs Mills for that. And I know all that Mills is and will be largely lost in this acquisition. That was very clear for me from almost the beginning, because of the people involved, what they were saying, and how it was being handled. And that's why I and everyone in the coalition has chosen to fight every day, literally, for over a year, and will continue to fight and be a watchdog and hold those accountable and do whatever we can to get the justice that Mills and its 170-year history and legacy deserves. Even if that does happen at a future date, Mills will make history again. One of the bright lights of this dramatic struggle has been that it's brought all of us together, those with shared values who are willing to stand up and fight no matter what, and to question. And I consider that really precious. And I ask all of you that we stay together as a community and nurture and develop that one gift and take it forward in the most powerful way that we can. Let's remember who we are and what we represent with more vigor, and doing a better job than we did before in supporting one another, in reaching out and thinking about how we can do more and be proactive and help one another and let's fight for what's right and find a way forward together.
Thank you so much, Karen. You really touched me with your words, and I do want us all to stay together. We want to stay together, and you know, a silver lining that I've seen in the last 15 months, I think we're at now, is how we have come together, and just getting to know all of you extraordinary women, reconnecting with the women that I maybe knew at Mills, or didn't quite know, but now know. I just think this has been a really extraordinary journey for all of us, and we don't have the result that we want right now. But as Karen said, and actually all of our speakers have said today, we need to keep pushing forward. We need to not take no for an answer, as Shay said, and we still believe that there is a Mills that we can have in the future. And so please know that us from the Save Mills College Coalition, we are not giving up. This isn't the end, and every single day we will continue to work on this until we feel that we have gotten justice. So thank you. And that's the end of our evening. Again, I apologize, we didn't have time for questions. Please email us. We do have the chat. If we have your email, your phone number, we can get you an answer. And we will have, hopefully in the near future, another town hall, and we can address more questions from our audience. Thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate you. We love you. We care about you. And we're in this together. Good night.